Hello, hey everybody, welcome to Common Censored. This is the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
And sometimes other stuff.
And the other stuff for this week is about how Patreon can go fuck a red hot poker. Yeah, we've been royally
Bamboozled.
screwed by Patreon in an epic way.
Which I just also like to point out that Patreon has been kind of a dick for quite some time.
Totally.
And it's not like, we didn't start using Patreon because we were like, oh God, look at this great like grassroots open source fucking anti-corporate entity. We just wanted a way to keep the show going and have like some sort of like reciprocal setup where y'all could donate what you could and then get something extra for it. And but it turns out that not even that Patreon can't handle.
Even that
its
was
sole
too
purpose
much
for being. It just can't.
And here's the thing, I feel like it'd probably make for a better episode right now for us to talk about a different story and then reveal what happened with Patreon, but I can't.
Lee needs to vent, y'all.
I can't hold it off that long. It's just too fucking infuriating. I'm gonna tell what happened, and actually I will. I'll use it to at least mention a couple of things about corporations. I think it can. We can use this.
Tie
we can
it
use
in.
this as a learning lesson, as a learning moment. But
The more you know.
but I will say so. Yeah. So to give people some background, some of you support us on Patreon. It's not a ton of money. It's just, it's 400 to 450 people support us on Patreon. And I can't thank you enough. You guys have kept the show going. But like I said, it's not some grand amount of money. It's a bit that helps with the podcast. And I have never really liked Patreon much, but anyway, to give you the details, we had it set up. I had the page set up for charge by the post, which those of you who donate for Patreon know that. Charge by the post, which means 4 episodes a month. You're charged 4 times a month. Most of you are signed up for $1 an episode. Some of you are signed up for $4 an episode. But that's the majority of, and I think there might be a $2 or something, but that's the majority of people. So, you're getting charged like $4 a month or something, and it's a tiny amount for a single person, but when all of you do it together, it helps keep this show going. Now, they started giving me pop-ups when I would log in, and they had never really given me pop-ups before, and the pop-up said, would you like to charge people monthly? And that would allow for the annual membership possibility. Now, at first I was kind of like, whatever, no, and I ignored it. And then it popped up again and again. And eventually I thought about it and I was like, oh, that might be convenient for people. People might not like getting charged 4 times a month. Maybe once a month is better. And it also means you could do yearly, which I know some people like doing because then they can just pay it and never think about it for the rest of the year. So I was like, oh, okay. So you can do yearly and monthly. All right, I will switch to monthly. Now, maybe there was a page listing all the details of this. I don't remember one, but even if there was one, it's kind of like the iPhone
The
user,
iTunes user agreement.
iTunes user agreement, yeah.
Or one of my favorites, sorry, I just have to share this. I think they ended up changing it, but several years ago, in order to read 17 magazine, you had to sign a user agreement that said that you were 18 or older.
Yeah. Amazing.
That's one of my favorites.
Amazing.
Carry on.
But yes, so if there was a page of crap, I definitely didn't read it. But anyway, so I click this thing, says switch to pay monthly. Okay, bloop. Basically one click, not a big deal. Didn't have to sign anything. It's just one click. So they go, okay, we're switching into monthly. And I had assumed, Because I think subconsciously, I calculate what does the corporation get out of this. If I thought that their goals were different than my goals, then I'd be far more skeptical. But I figured, oh, well, they figure this makes it easier for people too, and they get to collect their percentage, which is a lot. Patreon takes, when it all adds up, I mean, it's like 40 or 50%. It's like crazy. I don't even understand how their model works, but it's a shitload of it. And so I figured, well, they're not going to do anything that greatly decreases the amount of money coming in. And so I click this thing. It goes, okay, it's switched to monthly. So now your payments have switched to monthly, but once a month, you pay what you used to pay per episode.
Once a week.
So what you all used to be paying, for those of you who were supporters, a week is now a month. So we've decreased our revenue from Patreon by 75%. 75% of it is gone. And I get that, so I can ask people to switch and update their payment amounts, and we could add tiers and things to try and get people back to where, closer to where it was. So, by the way, also like 15 or 20 people immediately unsubscribed, I think because they saw the monthly payment and it probably looked different, or Patreon sent them an alert.
Yeah, well, you just get like an alert that says something has changed,
Yeah.
and if you didn't change it, it looks shady.
You get nervous. It's shady.
Right,
yeah.
it makes it look like we're fucking with your money when in reality we're not,
Right,
and we actually just basically
Right.
turned away some of your money.
Not some of it, 75%.
Okay. All right.
I need you to say the number. Say the number. So, and yeah, believe it or not, I got an email from someone who seemed to be thinking we'd done the reverse, that they had signed up for monthly and I decided to start charging people weekly, which is the opposite. But anyway, so I then go to Patreon, which they're impossible to contact. There's like some email thing that you can email. You can't phone call. Literally, it says on their page, we have no phone service, customer service, whatever. So
because we're trying to avoid you.
We're trying to avoid you as much as possible. We're a corporate entity who wants you to fucking die. So I email them about it, and I say I have to reverse this. I assumed, maybe this makes me dumb. I assumed that when they said charge monthly, it charge what you're currently paying per month monthly. So if you were signed up for $1 per episode, $4 per month, it would start charging you $4 per month. That's what I assumed, apparently wrongly. And I say, oh, I got to switch this. They say, oh, no, unreversible. Can't ever do it. And literally, like, they just send me, it's like quasi fucking form letters. Mm-hmm. It's probably an employee in Bangladesh who's told to, who's paid 15 cents an hour to answer these things. And they just go, oh, yeah, no, that's irreversible. And it's like, why give me a little pop-up where I have to click one button that does this and make it irreversible? And so first, so there's kind of different levels to this. One level is, Jesus, this is fucking, I'm really glad that I don't make my living from Patreon.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't spend my time making a TV show, then my living, a lot of it would probably have been YouTube videos with a Patreon account, and that's where it would be coming, and I would have just fucked 75% of all of my living. Luckily, that's not the case. I feel bad for other performers where that is the case. But then secondly, I was kind of like, well, how do they benefit from this? Why are they doing this to people? And it occurred to me that a lot of creators, unlike us, probably get people to sign up per post and then don't make enough. Maybe it's per painting or drawing. It could be per column, and they don't end up outputting as much. So Patreon, if they switch it to pay monthly, then they can keep collecting even when someone's not creating. And I think to them, that is the goal. But for people like us who put out our product every week and almost never miss one, this is a fucking catastrophe.
Well, and it also, speaking of like the corporate mindset, it reminds me of when I'd call, we've all been in this position where you have to call a corporate call center for some bullshit reason. And they're like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I can't adjust that. And you're like, oh, you can.
Right.
I know that you can. You probably have a little button there that says adjust the thing that she's asking for, but you choose not to because you've got this little fucking list of things that you're allowed to do, and help the person on the other line is not on that list of things. Yep. And so I bet you the money that they stole, that they could easily switch it back. but they don't want to because they want it to be permanent, because they want people to be in this position where they have to basically restructure their page.
Yeah.
And they're banking on,
yeah.
they're banking on people not having other places to go. However,
I'll basically conclude with this. So we have found a new place to go. I'm going to present it next week, I think, because we haven't created a page yet, so we got to do all that work, and I don't.
And also, we do have other things to discuss.
And no, that is not the reason. Listen, I'll go the rest of the hour if you want me to.
I bet you will.
So we don't have a page there yet, so I don't want to give it away, and then people go there and there's nothing there for them. So we will be announcing it next week, a different platform that should be a lot better. But also, if you are on Patreon right now and you're one of those members, please don't delete your membership yet. Please wait until we have a new place to go and everything. That would be most helpful to us. And
sorry for the confusion, y'all.
Sorry for the confusion. Sorry if people are out there thinking we're somehow scamming them. No, we're actually losing a great deal of money. But like I said at the beginning, this is not like we do the show, it's not like we're getting paid a large amount. We do the show for you because we are passionate about it, and we're not looking to take in tons of money from it. It was just a little bit to help keep the show going. And so we hope you will be with us with that. And in that vein, we do donate all of the live stream donations, which for those of you who joined us for the live stream, we do them most Sundays. We got another one coming up this Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we donate all the proceeds. And so what we did this week, which I just kind of wanted to shout this out, is we collected funds to give back to you all, those of you who need a little help right now. And we're not talking about loads of money. We're talking about $50 to $100. And it went great. We brought in some donations this past Sunday, and we then gave them out to people that were really struggling. And we're going to talk more about that on the live stream this Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/momentofclarity. But if you are out there and you are really struggling and would like a little bit of help, email commoncensored@protonmail.com. Basically, we just want to get an email from you, find out you're a real person, and then we'll put you on a list. And after that point, it's random. So we'll randomly pick from the list if there's too many people to give a little bit to everybody. And that's how we've been. So we've been donating those funds, but the way we were funding the podcast is Patreon, and they have royally fucked us in the face. To put it lightly. I looked up, that's an academic term,
It's official, yeah. So yeah, do you feel better?
I do.
Okay, good.
Last thing.
Yes.
This says something about this is standard corporate dishonesty and corporate disinterest in their customers. There's a vague sense of, oh, you're having a tough time and you're one of our customers. How can we help you? But in general, that, like I said, it's probably, those responses are probably written by someone who's getting paid in Bangladesh. And this is how fucking capitalism works. These corporations, this is a for-profit corporation. They're trying to take in more money each month so that they continue to look like they're growing. So as Patreon stops growing, these things have to plateau. You can't, some things can keep growing forever, like Netflix seems to be, but most of them plateau and don't keep growing. But because the market system says, no, grow at all costs every month, they need to find new ways. Patreon's offering merch and shit now. This switch to monthly, annually thing is a plan of theirs to try and get more people paying monthly, whether someone's creating something or not. So if they fail to create, they keep collecting the funds. So this type of thing is just standard corporate America, and we all get fucked by it at one point or another. Right now, we're on the losing end of the wheel that goes round and round and picks a new person to get to fuck. But People are out there like, taking their car in and getting lied to by the auto mechanic as to the prices of things, or, parts that are meant to fall apart. So you have to buy a new one,
Planned obsolescence.
Planned obsolescence, to use a bigger word.
Shit be breaking.
Shit be breaking. Yeah, that was my old bit. Planned
I stole it.
Which means shit be breaking. And this is how corporate America works. And it's, my fury is not shock. It's just, it sucks when you're on the losing end of this system that is meant to do this to people.
Well, and we've actually had this conversation to take a little turn towards Philosophy Town. And I have a new episode of Act Out coming out this Friday if y'all want more from the nerdery. But we've had this conversation before where shock, like, just because you're not shocked by something doesn't mean that you can't be furious. I'm not at all shocked to hear the fact that Biden bombed Syria. I'm not at all shocked at the fact that Biden doesn't give a flying fuck about raising the minimum wage or canceling student debt or any of the things that he doesn't give a flying fuck about. But I am furious. I am incredibly angry, and I am not going to just sit with that. I'm going to be active about it. But I'm not shocked. So I think that there's this there's this feeling that when shock goes away, you just slide into apathy. I think that there's a misconception there, and that should be the opposite. Right. If you are to be honest, like, if you are still being shocked and you don't feel like there's anything that you can do, that's when you latch on to apathy and you're like, well, fuck it, it's shocking, but there's nothing I can do about it, so who cares? But when you understand the machinations of the system and it no longer shocks you, you can really get underneath the din, right? Underneath, and we've talked about this before too, underneath like that 24-hour news cycle where the real work happens, kind of like under the surface of the bullshittery and the propaganda, where we actually have the ability to build new worlds and topple empires. And that's where that lack of shock, but that fury and that determination and that resilience really come into play. So I think it's important to not mistake the lack of shock for the lack of anger.
Yeah, my shock about these things is gone, but for the most part, but my anger persists, and I assume it always will, and I hope it always will. I'm not any less angry now than I was, when I was protesting the Iraq War or something. It's still, the fire still burns, but now it's directed squarely at Patreon. Speaking of shocked, not shocked, but angry. Furious, let's talk about Pfizer.
Yes. So, as y'all may know, there's been a lot of kinks and twists and turns and hairpins and all of those other words with regards to the rollout of various vaccines because when you put profit above public health, right, you can't actually get life-saving meds to people who need them. And that was, of course, true ahead of the pandemic, as y'all know. But it turns out that when it comes to the global pandemic, this is a windfall for these big pharmaceuticals, but they can't just leave it there. A new report from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism shows that Pfizer has been bullying Latin American governments in COVID vaccine negotiations and has asked some countries to put up sovereign assets such as embassy buildings and military bases as guarantee against the cost of any future legal cases. And basically, like, as a part of that, these countries are basically being held to ransom. It's kind of it's reminiscent of the World Bank, what they do. They're like, oh, you want a loan? Sure, we'll give you a loan, but you have to sign over your natural resources to us, or else you don't get the loan. And so you're basically between absolute financial ruin and handing over any future economic gains to the World Bank. This is kind of the same thing. You could watch like a bunch of people die unnecessarily, or you could sign on with Pfizer and just lose some fucking military bases and some embassies, and also sign sign something that basically says that you are not going to sue in case shit goes awry.
This is what Jonas Salk did the same thing, right?
Yeah,
he
totally.
He said, I've got the polio vaccine.
Fuck all of you.
If you give me all of your military, then you can have it.
Yeah. So basically what these, and actually that's not true. For those who don't know, Jonas Salk said, just go forth and make more of the polio vaccine. I want it to be open to everyone.
Right. He literally gave it away
patent it.
for free, didn't patent it, didn't make any money from it.
So yeah, Jonas Salk has left the building, ladies and gentlemen. But so basically this is most of these countries that have been asked, that have been, put in this position have offered indemnity, which is exemption from legal liability to the vaccine manufacturers that they're buying from. And I'm quoting from the article here, quote, "This means that a citizen who suffers an adverse effect after being vaccinated can file a claim against the manufacturer, and if successful, the government would pay the compensation. In some countries, people can also apply for compensation through specific structures without going to court," end quote. So it basically means that the governments are responsible for any shit that happens with the vaccine, not the pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical companies get all the profits and none of the, risk.
Right.
And this is, and the other thing that they've done is they've demanded that they sign non-disclosure. I don't know if they were called NDAs in the article, but basically sign non-disclosure agreements that say that they won't talk about this. So this was leaked basically.
And this is done in coordination with the U.S. government, right? Like they're basically, they're asking for military bases. This is Pfizer with the U.S. government getting what the U.S. government wants in exchange for the vaccine.
Right, and I should also add that that Pfizer.
I don't think Pfizer has a military, so I'm assuming that.
I mean, basic. Well, and this is where you get a bit into the weeds, because it's like, what did George Carlin say? The U.S. is basically a corporation with an army or something.
Oil company with
an army. I mean, right? We're basically just a collection of corporations that have the largest military the world has ever seen.
Right. No, when I said done with cooperation with the U.S. government, obviously our corporations own the U.S. government largely, but that doesn't mean they don't do things separately. Pfizer does most of its business separately and then manipulates the U.S. government when needed. But obviously, if it's asking for military bases in exchange for the vaccine, that is Pfizer / U.S. government going into these agreements or negotiations with other countries.
Yeah, and so hold on, sorry. I also want to point out that Pfizer is going above and beyond the call of duty here, and, quote, asked for additional indemnity for civil cases, meaning that the company would not be held liable for rare adverse effects or for its own acts of negligence, fraud, or malice. That includes those linked to company practices, say if Pfizer sent the wrong vaccine or made errors during manufacturing, end quote.
The amazing word in that, I'm not surprised that they're asking for, negligence, blah, blah, blah. Someone gets sick from the vaccine. They don't have to pay any damages. That sounds like standard corporate shitheadery. But the fraud one I find funny. Because
right, like if they sent you a smallpox vaccine instead, you couldn't sue them for that.
But not accidentally, like intentionally.
Right.
That's what fraud is. Fraud is not negligence. Fraud is we want to harm you or steal from you, and we can't be held liable for that. That's crazy.
And the other side of this that this report also points out, quote, this presents an additional burden for some countries because it means having to hire specialist lawyers and sometimes pass complex new legislation so manufacturers' liabilities can be waived, end quote. So it's not just give up your fucking embassies and shit. It's also you need to pass legislation in order to get a vaccine just so that you are sure to protect the pharmaceutical companies. And, we wouldn't want you going into, into your halls of Congress or your parliament to pass legislation to protect your people. That'd be fucking ridiculous. We want you to go into your halls of parliament to pass legislation that will protect the pharmaceutical companies from, just in case we end up filling these vials full of mercury instead and sending them to you, no big deal.
This is so infuriating. And I'm sorry to sound like a broken record, but yet again, this comes down to the market economy. I mean, if you had a world that was not centered around just profit, around just beating out, other corporations, getting as rich as possible, then these things wouldn't even be discussed. It would be, we are working together to save lives, and so maybe you can charge what it costs for you to make the vaccine, but otherwise, there's no other cost that should be, or negotiations that should be connected to this. And of course, that's not how our nation states work. Our nation states are, and obviously America and late stage capitalism, they're built around how can we exploit this? How can we remain, continue our hegemony? Like, it's just mind-blowing, the levels they'll go to destroy lives to keep their power.
Yeah, and another point is that there are already countries, and two countries that factor heavily in this article are Brazil and Argentina, and the article talks about how the Argentinian Ministry of Health began negotiating with Pfizer already, last year, and in October their Congress passed a new law allowing for indemnity. But Pfizer wasn't happy with the phrasing of that legislation, and quote, the government believed Pfizer should be liable for any acts of negligence or malice. Pfizer, said the official, disagreed, end quote. So the negotiations couldn't go forward because Pfizer, even though they were already cleared and, indemnified against civil cases, they still wouldn't sign the agreement because they wanted to make sure that acts of negligence or malice were covered. That's literally
malice.
That's literally like telling someone, I want you to sign this contract that says if I stab you in the eye with a sword, it's not my fault.
That's amazing. I mean, that's what happens when someone comes to the negotiating table and their people are dying. Basically, the other group is like, oh, we can get whatever the fuck we want. Give us all of your things and tell us that you will never be able to sue us for anything.
Yeah, and of course, not that this really even needs to be mentioned, but haven't heard a lot from corporate media on this one.
What?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Been kind of quiet.
You mean they didn't slip it into the middle of hour 23 of Andrew Cuomo's a dickhead?
Oh, I forgot. It's all Andrew Cuomo's a dickhead now.
Yep, Andrew Cuomo's a dickhead week. And by the way, him being inappropriate with women is wrong. So is fucking the corpses that he left in the elder care facilities.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many reasons he should be forced to step down, yet stepping down is only ever talked about with inappropriate comments and behavior.
You have a joke about this, don't you?
Yeah,
it's brilliant. I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm not going to do the whole joke.
Oh, come
well, hold on.
on.
Part of the joke also, I think, has to do with like the look on my face as I do it. But anyway, it's about how that when multiple news anchors were fired for sexual assault, what's his name, Charlie Rose, and Matt Lauer, and so I talk about those moments where they literally, like the show that everybody's been watching for 25 years, not me, but most people, for 25 years, suddenly they zoom in and and the guy's not there anymore. And like with the Today Show, it's like the two women sitting there being like, well, this is awkward. And they, and they're like, oh, it's so, it's so terrible. We feel bad for the victims. We feel bad for Matt, which is literally what they said. We feel bad for the victims. We feel bad for Matt. and this is just really terrible. And my point in the bit is just, yes, that okay, absolutely, they sexually assaulted people, they should be fired. Just once, I want to see them zoom in, and it's CNN, and it's nobody you've ever seen before, and they're like, hi. So it turns out Wolf Blitzer has been manufacturing consent for war for years, and we didn't know about it. We're just finding out about it like you are. Anyway, the point is, these people should be fucking fired for all that shit.
I know.
Not just that Andrew Cuomo said to a girl, "Can I kiss you?" in the middle of a wedding. I mean, it's wrong, but it's fucking on the level of the shit these people do. And I just wish that the anger were equivalent for all of these behaviors.
Yeah, but I mean that idea that we can hold multiple truths at the same time, right? We can hold multiple facts, and it also pisses me off because it comes across as just being trendy right now. Like, oh, it's trendy to highlight sexual assault. And then it's not going to be trendy at some point. And then sexual assault's going to continue. And because like the real anger about the sexual assault isn't in these higher places. It's in the grassroots, but it's still not like I doubt that these people when they go home are really fucking angry about the rampant sexual abuse that's in I don't know, like homeless shelters, or that's
right.
it's like it's only a passing phase of giving a fuck about the people that are in your circles, and so it's not a systemic analysis. It's certainly not an analysis of patriarchy, and so it's just this passing fad, which is not helpful at all.
Right, to get to the heart of the issue, to talk about the patriarchy and everything else, and I also bet you that this, except for the fact that Fox News is probably covering this nonstop, I bet you that CNN and MSNBC probably would not have covered it that much, except they feel like they have to keep up with Fox News, because they would probably normally kind of defend the Democrat by not covering it that much, but instead they know Fox News is 3 channels away, and they have to act like they care equivalently when Cuomo does shit as when the right wing does shit.
Oh, and where was this? I was seeing this on the Twitterverse as well. There were a bunch of people like, so are we going to circle back to Tara Reid as well, or
nope,
or
no, we are not. Definitely not. By the way, folks, I interviewed Tara Reid a few months ago, and you can watch that at youtube.com/redacted tonight. But anyway, couple of quick things before we get to the next stories. Do not sign up on Patreon.
In case you need a refresher, circle back to the beginning of the episode.
If you are a member on Patreon, please don't cancel it yet. We will have new information and hopefully a new page for you to go to next week.
Stay with us.
So just chill and stay with us,
Hold
and
on.
we're going to try and get through this royal punch to the face from Patreon. We do have a live stream this weekend, 7 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/momentofclarity. If you've never tuned in for that, it's a lot of fun. And we answer your comments and everything else and talk about all of the news that your mainstream media wishes we wouldn't talk about. Eleanor's movie has your new Vimeo in general. This is not just about your movie, right?
Oh, so I just wanted to let folks know that I have updated my Vimeo page, because that's a thing that people do these days.
It's like Tinder, right?
Absolutely. You can swipe. Which direction is the good one?
I don't know.
Okay. Whichever direction is the good one, that's the direction you can swipe. Can you tell I've used it a lot? So basically, it's just a couple of the trailers from the film and some examples of recent news production work, and so you can see examples of the filmmaking and news production that I do, and that's basically what's up there. And then there's a little bit of spoken word as well, and I will be adding more as we move forward. But if you want to check that out, go to vimeo.com/Eleanor Goldfield. That's the film itself is up at hardroadofhope.com. And And also, if you are someone who needs some help right now,
if $50 to $100 would make a difference in your life and you could really use it, then please email commonsensor to protonmail.com. We're trying to donate as much as we can from the live streams, like the one we're doing this Sunday. And yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, so excuse me, y'all. I don't have the COVID. I had a bit of a laughing attack before we started the podcast, and that's why I'm over here.
Defeated by a laughing attack.
It's rough being around a fucking comedian, and then you have to like put on a straight face.
Wasn't there a laughing fit or something that overtook a whole city?
Wasn't that in the Batman movie?
Oh, and there was also a dancing virus or something.
Oh no, the dancing plague.
Dancing plague.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
I think I was about to say archaeologists, not archaeologists. Historians think that was a form of LSD. So,
okay. Cool. Good time.
Yeah, because people would literally dance till they dropped, and some would die of, like they wouldn't drink, they wouldn't eat, they would just dance, which goes from fun to morbid really fast, or over the course of morbid, like 2 days.
What a good dance! She's dead.
So, and interestingly enough, some people think that that's where the legend of the Pied Piper comes from. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about here. But also related to kids and harm, the organization...
Two of my favorite topics.
Environmental Health News recently released a report about the effects of fracking to folks who live close to it. And this particular report was done on a small area in western Pennsylvania on families there. And it was done in the summer of 2019 over a 9-week period. They collected air, water, and urine samples from 5 non-smoking southwestern Pennsylvania households. All of the households included at least one child. 3 households were in Washington County within 2 miles of numerous fracking wells, pipelines, and compressor stations. To be honest, if you're in that part of Pennsylvania, I'd be shocked if you were further than 2 miles from fracking wells, pipelines, or compressor stations.
Pennsylvania is like Swiss cheese at this point.
Dude, if you look at a map, and this is actually a great resource that Frack Tracker has, shout out to them. They're a phenomenal organization. But if you look at they have maps that show fracking infrastructure in each state. So you can look at your home place and see what's been fracked with. Pennsylvania, you can't even see the outline of the state. You can't even see the state. It's just crisscrossed by all kinds of pipelines, fracking wells. And here's the thing. I think a lot of people, understandably, think of pipelines. I'm going on a little tangent here. Think of pipelines as these huge, massive projects because we hear about stories like DAPL and, the Keystone XL and Line 3. And we think of these incredibly large-scale projects that cover hundreds and hundreds of miles. And that's true. Those clearly exist in the world of fracking. Not least of all the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which is still very much, overshadowing parts of Appalachia, and folks are standing in the way of it, literally sitting in the tree sits. Check out Appalachians Against Pipelines if you're interested in that. But in Pennsylvania, and actually anywhere, in West Virginia too, where there's fracking infrastructure, you'll have a lot of smaller pipelines too, like things called gathering pipelines that basically transfer the fracked gas from the wells to a station where they can process it. So that's not a full-fledged hundreds and hundreds of miles pipeline. That's a smaller pipeline. You have other auxiliary pipelines. Right. So you basically have all of this pipeline infrastructure where they still have to dig into the ground, but it's not, they get away with it looking like it's not that big of a deal, it's just a small gathering pipeline.
Well, and also that's the thing, when people would protest the bigger pipelines, and they should be protested, but sometimes if they can't get the bigger one through, they just weave together all these smaller ones. Mm-hmm. So it's like, just because you stop one pipeline does not mean you've stopped the project.
Right, absolutely. And there are so many ways that they get around this, literally and figuratively. For instance, the the Dakota Access Pipeline, they just moved it away from Bismarck and through, of course, indigenous territory. So it's not difficult for them. They've got all of the money and all of the support to reroute these projects. And that's why it's, of course, so important to employ direct action. But circling back to this study by Environmental Health News, quote, I'm quoting from their report here, quote, we found, and I'm going to mispronounce these chemicals, so I apologize. Quote, we found chemicals like benzene and butylchlorhexane in drinking water and air supplies, and break down products for chemicals like ethylbenzene, stearine, and toluene in the bodies of children living near fracking wells at levels up to 91 times as high as the average American.
Jesus.
I am going to say that again. Chemicals like ethylbenzene, stearine, and toluene in the bodies of
with ethylbenzene.
children living near fracking wells at levels up to 91 times higher than the average American.
Yeesh.
And substantially higher than levels seen in the average adult cigarette smoker. The chemicals were found in the air and the water and inside of people's bodies, and they are linked to a wide range of harmful health impacts, from skin and respiratory irritation to organ damage and cancer.
Them saying this is okay, because they run around these states telling people, it's fine, we're doing it over there, we're going to clean it up, all this shit. Them saying this fine is like Steven Donziger told me this week about what they were saying to the indigenous in Ecuador when they were dumping oil into the middle of the Amazon, destroying these people's habitat. They told them that the oil was healthy and that it actually was like vitamins. So if they saw it in their water, it was fine. It was like vitamins.
Yeah, dude, it's absolutely horrifying. And I'm gonna share this heart-wrenching piece as well, just because I think it's important to not just talk about like ethylbenzene and a bunch of shit I can't pronounce. They also talk about in their study a single father on disability who fears these exposures are causing his son's illness, but he can't afford to move. Another family that did move to escape a school surrounded by well pads. Yes, that's a school surrounded by well pads that can explode at any moment. But found themselves living next to a new set of wells and still being exposed. A quiet rural lifestyle once defined by idyllic farms, rolling hills, and fresh air, now overwhelmed by heavy truck traffic, heavy industry, and communities at odds over whether to protest that loss or try and cash in by leasing mineral rights. This is it's a brilliant and succinct way of putting it. It's fucking murder. They're literally committing homicide in these communities, and people are at a loss of whether to sell their mineral rights, which for folks who don't know, I'm not going to get too into it, but mineral rights are basically what exist underneath the topsoil, and it's a tactic that's been used by coal, by oil and gas, to basically say that you own your topsoil. We're going to, we've separated the rights so that we can own everything below the topsoil, which basically means we own your property.
And mineral rights makes it sound nice. They don't call it, would you like to sell the right for us to drill the fuck out of your land and pollute your water?
Right.
But it sounds like mineral rights. Oh, that's cool. That means they walk around my property and they find a stone and it's sparkly and they keep it.
So yeah, this is we saw a horror movie recently that did a
I was trying to remember
really
the
good
name.
job.
Do you remember the name?
Yeah, fuck, what was it? Oh,
literally it's a horror movie about fracking. Don't watch it if you're looking for a good time.
No, it is dark.
It's intense.
I'm gonna look it up. But so this Unearth is what it's called. Unearth, and it is terrifying. But and I actually had a great conversation with the filmmaker. I was on his podcast, John C. Lyons, and he does a great job of showing the rift that happens in communities, which is something that I've seen in West Virginia as well.
Yeah.
You have people that say, fuck off to the fracking companies, get away from my farm or what have you. And then you have the people who are struggling because there aren't, enough subsidies for a small scale farmers who want to do things, an old fashioned way or a new sustainable way. And so they figure, well, fuck it. I guess I'll just sell off my property. And, they say that they're going to give me money for what they drill and what they get up. And it's all bullshit.
They tell me it's clean and safe.
Right.
And yet again, this comes down to capitalism. In the world of capitalism, you can get somebody often to you can hire them to dig their own grave if they're desperate enough.
Yep.
If they can't find a job, if they can't get by, then okay, hey, I got $5. Will you dig this hole? Yeah, we're gonna kill you and put you in it. Well, okay, that'll give me a few weeks. And so when people want to go, well, they make their own choice. They felt like they needed the check or whatever. That's fine. That's your own freedom. It's not freedom when you're being crushed by economic force. That's not freedom.
Nope.
And so this libertarian garbage about like, well, you're free, man. Make your own choice. If you want to take the money, let them get the mineral rights, and that's your freedom. Free American. It's like, you're not free. You're collapsing under the pain of economic force. That's not free.
Nope. And speaking of the crush of capitalism, we're going to do one or two more stories here. But this was a recent report. Hold on.
I don't know the word.
Let me learn English real quick. I'll get back to you. A recent report.
You would have made a good news anchor.
You know what? A recent report shows that, quote, limiting private insurance reimbursement to Medicare rates would reduce health spending by about $350 billion in 2021.
I don't follow what that means.
So basically, the way that our system is set up is that we spend currently about $859 billion. I'll say that again. $859 billion on private insurance is what is basically the yearly amount that's spent on private insurance. If you use the Medicare rates, which is, the government funded, it's $507 billion. So that's $352 billion less if you used the government-funded rates for health insurance, which is part of it's part of this concept, which has been shared a lot in the universal healthcare push, is that not only is it just the humane thing to do, you fucking sociopaths, but it actually will save money. And so basically this report, which was put out.
Kaiser Family Foundation.
Okay, yeah. So basically, yeah. So this is private insurers pay higher prices than Medicare, and that gap is growing. So y'all might notice that if if you have health insurance and you go to get a procedure, it will cost you more than if you have Medicare or Medicaid. This is something that I've experienced personally. I go to do physical therapy, and with Medicaid, it was covered, and then with health insurance, which I have to pay for, it then costs, like $50. But then why am I paying a monthly, and why was, it makes no fucking sense, right? But this is how private insurance makes so much money. And again, as this report shows, that gap is growing. So the amount that the same procedures, the same medical resources are being, you pay more and more and more for private insurance than Medicare and Medicaid. So the procedure or the medical attention costs the same amount of money,
right,
but their profit margin is growing. And so this report shows that basically we would save billions. Like, I don't even know what $350 billion is. I can't, my brain can't wrap itself around that number. It just
No, you can't wrap yourself around. Our brains aren't meant to process any of these numbers anymore. The $1 trillion to the military. I mean, what do these things even mean anymore?
Yeah. You sound so sad. Sorry, but yes, it is fucking ridiculous, and sometimes I even think, what is the point of even sharing that number, because it's so bananas.
I will tell you this: to end world hunger is like $35 billion a year.
Right.
A year. So.
Yeah, like Bezos could pay for it and still be like one of the richest people in the world.
So with this difference that you talked about between the two rates, you could pay to end world hunger for 10 years.
And you'd still get health care. So I just, and I mean, there's so many reports like this. So this is not anything new, but I think that it's particularly in the times we're living in now, when people are being slapped with, $80,000 hospital bills because they had to be intubated because of COVID, a virus that spread because of government malfeasance and inability to act. It's like the fact that the government doesn't cover that shit is absolutely unacceptable.
And now they're opening up Texas and Mississippi. They're just going back to normal. Just killing each other.
I thought you were just going to say killing it, and I'm like, well, yeah.
Just killing each other and don't seem to care. It's interesting. It's a unique way to go through life.
So before we wrap up, I just want to say one thing, because I did want to give a shout out to Keith McHenry. You've had him on your show, I believe. Food Bombs.
Well, I had him on Moment of Clarity, yep, just a couple weeks ago, and that's still up at youtube.com/Moment of Clarity.
So I just wanted to give a shout out, because there's been a new ordinance. You might recall that we covered the fact that in Santa Cruz, which I remember from, this was like 15 years ago, so don't. I'm aging myself. But I remember, like, when I used to go to Santa Cruz, it was like this really cool hippy dippy place. Like, there were, people living in trees, not because they were blocking a pipeline, just because they lived in trees. And just really, really cool people and like a really cool vibe. And apparently it's turned into kind of like a San Francisco suburb, or like a burb feel, with a lot of rich people, a lot of like Silicon Valley types that just hate people who aren't rich, like you do. And so this has caused the city to kind of move to the right. And the latest ordinance, after they already threw out Food Not Bombs from a vacant fucking parking lot where they were feeding people and then threatened to arrest them.
It was a real problem having them there.
Right? It's like, it's a vacant parking lot that no one was fucking using, you monsters.
Right.
They released an ordinance that basically says that people can't camp on public property between the hours or like basically before. Sorry, let me just read this. Quote, limits camping on public property to 1 hour before sunset. What are you, fucking Cinderella? Until 7 a.m.
Where do they want people to go?
Exactly.
I hate this shit, dude. These fucking, like, cops walking around just hitting people with nightsticks and be like, move along. Where do you want them to go? You've created a city and a society that just exploits and destroys people, and then you're upset they're laying there?
Well, and then this is, it just gets so supremely, like, fucked, because they say that these areas include public parks, public property in residential zones, and beaches. Like, you can't sleep on the beach. That people do that who aren't homeless because it's nice, you fucking ass. Right. And then this could be one of the last refuges for people who literally have nowhere else to go. You just literally want to chuck them into the fucking ocean. Like, it is. So Keith McHenry.
Dude, I could totally see that. Cops just being like, move along, slowly
Right.
nudging people into the ocean. Just, well, where am I? Just keep moving, move a little further.
Totally wouldn't be surprised. And Keith McHenry had a nice yes men stunt that he pulled, which he released a press release with City of Santa Cruz letterhead that said that City Council is considering buying watches for the homeless people so they can tell when to leave. I'm also curious though, this 1 hour before sunset bullshit. It's like, how do you know? How do you know it's 1 hour before when the fuck?
Well, yeah. Of course, and it's like, I like the joke about buying them watches because it's like, put these on your wrist and then you'll know when we don't give a fuck about you, because it's about this time every day. I mean, all these ordinances and different techniques to basically just try and move the fucking detritus, the chewed up and spit out remnants, the externalities of capitalism, just to try and get them to move along. Just don't sit where we can see you, because we don't want to have to think about you. We don't want to have to help you. We don't want to really process why it is that we live in the richest country in the world with people sleeping on the streets. We don't want to really take that all in. So if you could just move it along where we don't have to see you, that would be ideal. I mean, it really is just horrific. I covered them crushing the tiny homes that have been built for the homeless in Las Vegas. They also in Las Vegas, they had said during the pandemic, well, we have a spot for the homeless, all the homeless during this pandemic, because shelters don't hold as many people during the pandemic. We have a spot for you. Just come on out. And literally, it's like a video of lines they've drawn on a parking lot. It's the most incredible thing I think I've ever seen. Like, here it is. We got a parking lot. We drew lines so you can socially distant from each other because you'll stay between your lines. Like, that's the best you can fucking do in giant empty casinos, 900 rooms empty, and here's a parking lot with some lines on it. It was just, I mean, it was an amazing analogy for everything that capitalism is.
Yep, and I think we wrapped that one up in a bow.
Sorry.
No, I'm fine ending on a low note. Shit's real sometimes.
Yeah, shit is real, but at least we can talk about our friends at Patreon. This episode sponsored by Patreon. If you would like to see your favorite content creators get fucked, then tell them to check out Patreon. Yeah, you guys heard the whole Patreon rant. We will have something new for you next week. Hopefully, a brand new page at a different service. That's the goal. But obviously, if you are still on Patreon, and I've requested you remain there for now, you are still supporting us, just at 1/4 the amount you used to. And we'll have more for you next week. Eleanor's movie is at hardroadofhope.com. If you were interested in what we were talking about in terms of fracking, a lot more information in that film. And all of my stuff's at leecamp.com. And if you're on hard times, need a little help, email commoncensored@protonmail.com, and we'll see if we can get to as many people as possible. And please join us, 7 p.m. Eastern, this coming weekend on Sunday, live stream, youtube.com/momentofclarity. All right, till next week, keep fighting.
Act out.